and ex-member of parliament, Professor Rajeev.
அருமை நண்பர்களே, கொஞ்சம் அமைதியா இருங்க. அகில இந்திய காங்கிரஸ் ஆராய்ச்சித்துறை தலைவரும் தேசிய செய்தி தொடர்பாளருமான திரு ராஜீவ் கவுடா அவர்கள் இன்றைக்கு பாஜக ஆட்சியினுடைய 9 ஆண்டுகள் 9 கேள்விகள் என்ற தலைப்பில் பத்திரிகையாளர்களை சந்திக்க வந்திருக்கிறார். திரு ராஜீவ் கவுடா அவர்கள் மிக பாரம்பரியமான அரசியல் குடும்பத்திலே பிறந்தவர். இவருடைய பெரியப்பா திரு எம்பி கிருஷ்ணப்பா அவர்கள் 6 முறை மக்களவை தொகுதியிலே வெற்றி பெற்றவர். அங்கே அமைச்சராக இருந்திருக்கார், எம்எல்சியாக இருந்திருக்கார். சோலார் பகுதியில் மிகப்பெரிய சோசியல் ரிஃபார்மர். அந்த பகுதி மக்களுக்காக கடுமையாக உழைத்தவர். ஒரே ஒரு சம்பவத்தை நான் நினைவுபடுத்த விரும்புகிறேன். 1976 தமிழ்நாடு காங்கிரஸ் கமிட்டிக்கு ஒரு தேர்தல் நடைபெற்றது. சென்னை மயிலாப்பூர்ல கபாலீஸ்வரர் கோயில் திருமண மண்டபத்தில் அந்த நிகழ்வு நடந்தது. அப்போ எம்பி கிருஷ்ணப்பா அவர்கள் அகில இந்திய காங்கிரஸ் பார்வையாளராக அந்த தேர்தலை நடத்தினார். அந்த தேர்தலில் ஜி.கே. மூப்பனாரும் பழ நெடுமாறன் அவர்களும் தஞ்சை ராமூர்த்தியும் போட்டியிட்டார்கள். பேலட்ல எலெக்ட் ஆன கடைசி காங்கிரஸ் பிரசிடென்ட் ஜி.கே. மூப்பனார். அந்த தேர்தலை நடத்தியவர் எம்பி கிருஷ்ணப்பா. அவருடைய சகோதரர் எம்பி வெங்கடப்பா, அவருடைய மகன்தான் திரு ராஜீவ் கவுடா. ஆக அரசியல் பாரம்பரியத்திலே வந்தவர். இன்றைக்கு தேசிய செய்தி தொடர்பாளராக இருக்கிறார். இன்றைக்கு கர்நாடக தேர்தல் அறிக்கை தயாரிப்பு பணியில பெரும் பங்காற்றியவர். அவரை தமிழ்நாடு காங்கிரஸ் சார்பாக நாங்கள் வரவேற்போம்.
Thank you for joining us.
Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you. அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். My senior colleague in the Lok Sabha, Dr. Jaykumarji, all the senior leaders of the Tamil Nadu Congress Committee, and friends from the media. I am coming here fresh from the success of our Congress party in Karnataka. I have flown here from Bengaluru, where we are expanding the cabinet today. And I want to tell you that the message of Karnataka to the nation, to Tamil Nadu, is that we have started the end of the Modi regime. We are bringing the Congress and the UPA back to power in the next general election. And the reason I am confident of this is because I will lay out to you the mega failures of the Modi Sarkar over the last 9 years. Yesterday marks the 9th anniversary, May 26th, when Shri Narendra Modi became Prime Minister of India in 2014. In those 9 years, in spite of getting a renewed chance in 2019, Prime Minister Modi has squandered the mandate which he received from the people of India, and India is much worse off today than it was 9 years earlier. Let me explain to you how. The first mega failure is on the economy front. Prime Minister Modi promised that 2 crore jobs would be created every year. Instead, he has presided over a job loss economy where jobs have not been created, government positions have not been filled, and further, people have become so discouraged that they are not even seeking employment. What is called the labor force participation has been falling, and has been falling especially for women who are discouraged from taking part in the workforce itself. think about what has happened under Modi Sarkar to you and me.
கொஞ்சம் அமைதியா இருங்க.
நீங்களே சத்தம் போட்டா அப்புறம் எப்படி இது?
பத்திரிகையாளர்கள் கொஞ்சம் அமைதியா இருங்க. யாரும் பேசக்கூடாது. செல்போன் ஆஃப் பண்ணுங்க.
Think of what has happened to you and me. When the UPA was in power, the price of crude oil internationally was $140 to a barrel. And when Modi Sarkar started, it came down to $40 a barrel. And instead of passing on the benefit to the people, they have continuously either kept the prices of petrol and diesel and LPG high, or they have kept increasing it. What LPG cylinder, about which Srimati Smriti Irani used to do drama on the streets when the price increased, that LPG cylinder from 400 rupees, it has gone up to more than 1,200 today. This affects you, this affects me. Similarly, the price of petrol crossed 100 rupees, diesel has gone up, practically doubled. So basically, what we have seen is, without thinking about the impact on the people of India, without thinking that a little cut in the prices would, when the global crude oil prices are low, pass on some of the benefit to the people of India. They did not, and they have kept the prices high. They hurt every one of us who travels by transportation using fossil fuels. This hurts every one of us because it feeds into the price rise that is causing inflation and making life difficult for people. And that is one more point. Under the Modi Sarkar, we have a combination of unemployment and inflation, what we call stagflation. And under this, we end up with a situation where people are not getting jobs or income, but it's becoming costlier to feed their families. What do they do in such a situation? They eat less. They feed their children less. And this will have a negative impact on our future generations. So, these are some of the major economic failures. And the biggest economic failure, of course, is the rise in inequality. In India, what you have seen under Prime Minister Modi is that the rich have become phenomenally richer. We have created many more billionaires, but the income of the poorer sections has been falling and falling and falling. It became worse during COVID, and it has remained bad for those who are poorer, and only the rich have been able to recover. The second mega failure. Since it's 9 years of Modi Sarkar, I am here to share with you 9 mega failures. One is on the economy. 2 is what Modi Sarkar has done to farmers. I am a farmer. Many of you will be children of farmers, and you know how difficult life has been for agriculturists to make ends meet. When the Prime Minister made an announcement that by 2022, by last year, he would double farmers' incomes, people thought, oh, finally someone has come to pay attention. But none of this has been realized. Instead, what has the Prime Minister and his government done? The price of diesel affects farmers who use diesel for their tractors. On top of that, they have levied GST on various farm activities, where the fertilizer gets GST at 18%. Okay, tractors, farm equipment, all of these you have to pay GST now. When you are not able to make ends meet, on top of that you have to contribute more to the Modi Sarkar's treasury. Along with this, out of the blue, a few years ago when I was in the Rajya Sabha, we saw that Modi Sarkar tried to bring in an amendment, ordinance to end the Land Acquisition Act. The Land Acquisition Act has been one of the most beneficial acts to farmers because it has compensated them when they lose land. I myself, my land is in Kolar district, bordering Andhra Pradesh and very close to Tamil Nadu, bordering Tamil Nadu as well. And there is a new highway coming from Hoskote to Sri Perumbudur, basically a new mega highway, which has bisected my agricultural lands. And we got good compensation. But Modi Sarkar, one of the first things he wanted to do was bring in an ordinance to eliminate this Land Acquisition Act. We fought it, we opposed it, and after multiple attempts, he basically withdrew. This has been the story of Modi Sarkar's attacks on farmers, which farmers have stood up and opposed. You saw that during the nearly 1 year farmer agitation outside Delhi, where more than 700 farmers died. Why? Because this government, just like land ordinance was aimed at pleasing their cronies and giving away land at a low cost without adequate compensation, similarly, the 3 black farm laws were also aimed at selling agriculture to his friends, especially Shri Gautam Adani. And in the process, the farmers of India stood up and pushed back so successfully that the Prime Minister had to withdraw. That is another set of failures. But ultimately, these are attacks on the farmers that the farmers have been able to repulse. But what has the government given to farmers? Have they increased minimum support price like they promised? Have they honored the promises that they made to the protesting farmers when they called off the strike? What have they done? Nothing. And this is something that if you pay attention to rural wages, what we call real wages have just not increased over the years. And the Prime Minister wanted to even get rid of Manrega, which has provided an income support to people in rural India at their time of distress. Let me turn to the third agenda, and that is about corruption and cronyism. Prime Minister, when he was campaigning, he said in Hindi, "Na khaunga, na khane dunga." I will not eat, I will not let others eat. Both of this has happened. What he is eating and who has provided what he is eating is not visible to us because the BJP brought in something called electoral bonds. Electoral bonds, the vast majority of them go to the BJP. 95% of electoral bonds have been bought at the denomination of 1 crore and above, which means only the fat cats, only the high net worth individuals, only the corporate interests who want to hijack India's public policy for their private benefit, only they have been buying this. And what have they been doing with these electoral bonds? They have been giving them substantially to Modi Sarkar. And can we find out who is giving this? The magic of electoral bonds, there is no transparency. There is only opacity. We cannot find out who is giving what contribution and what they are getting in return. But kha raha hai, they are eating, and that much we can tell you because those electoral bond numbers are very clear. And on the issue of na khane dunga, I will not let others eat. Please pay attention to the phenomenal growth of Shri Gautam Adani and his companies in the last few years. Not only has his company's wealth grown, but everywhere you look, you will see that national assets are being sold to Adani. 6 out of 6 airports that were recently put up were allocated to Adani. And under UPA, there used to be a rule which said the only people or organizations who could bid for airports were those who also had airport running experience. That rule was waived, and all of these airports were allocated to Mr. Adani. In fact, a big airport, Mumbai, which was allocated to the GVK group, what happened there? You will all remember. Suddenly the GVK group was raided, and very soon after that, they agreed to sell the Bombay airport to the Adani group. Similarly, across the country, everything, whether it is warehouses, whether it is the Container Corporation of India, all of these are being ready to be sold to Adani. Ports, airports, the railway lines, the containers, everything will be in the hands of Adani. And what does he do? In Lucknow, he has jacked up the price of which is charged to passengers by 1,000 rupees. So from every passenger, he reaps windfall profits. And this is how it's going to be. Once he corners all these national assets, that's the end of our story. And the hollowness of Adani's companies was revealed by the Hindenburg report, which showed that what was going on was that money would be siphoned out of India, brought back through Mauritius, used to pump up the asset price, the value of Adani's stocks, and all this, nobody knows who is doing this, who is doing the round tripping, and in the process, he's able to get a bigger value, apply to the banks for high value loans, and the underlying asset is hollow, but it's all being supported by this kind of crony facilitated criminal activity. And you all remember that famous photo in Australia. The Prime Minister is sitting with the chairperson of SBI, Arundhati Bhattacharya, and Mr. Adani in Australia. The Prime Minister is sitting there and putting pressure on her to issue a 1 million or whatever the amount is, or mega loan, $1 billion loan to Gautam Adani's company for its mining activities in Australia. Similarly, when you pay attention, when you see Prime Minister going to different countries, you will discover that many times he is not going there to pursue Indian foreign policy, he is going there to pursue Adani's commercial interests. You will see that when the Prime Minister went to Israel, soon after, a big defense contract was signed by Israel with Adani. Our neighboring country, Sri Lanka, one huge project was given to Adani, and the person who complained about it basically said they got a call from Delhi, and it was told that this is a personal demand of the Prime Minister and it should be treated as a government-to-government project. Similar cases have taken place in Bangladesh with the power project, where all rules have been flouted in order to make sure that Adani gets his, is this what foreign policy is for? To help cronies? Or is the government's job to push India's interests rather than in individuals? Now, along with that, let's move on to the next fourth mega failure. We all know that China has taken over some of the land that belongs to India, that there are thousands of square kilometers of land which we used to patrol, that was in our actual control, and that we have no longer access to. But the Prime Minister's response was, nobody has come and nobody has taken our land. Well, that was a clean chit given by the Prime Minister to China, and ever since then, China is asking for more and more, because if you tell China, move back, they'll say, what do you mean, move back? Your Prime Minister said that we haven't even invaded. So basically, all those poor soldiers died in vain because the Prime Minister is not willing to accept that there has been a mega failure of national security on his watch. And China, for multiple rounds of talks, nothing has been yielded to us, and we continue to face pressure from them to give away more land, more space. Similarly, we were having an election in Karnataka, but a state in the northeast was burning. Manipur was burning because of ethnic clashes. But did the Home Minister go there? Did the Home Minister comment? Did the Prime Minister comment? Is this how you treat our brothers and sisters from Manipur? Is it not your job as Home Minister and Prime Minister to keep harmony amongst our people? So many people, more than 60 people have died, hundreds have been injured, and the kind of tension and violence that has been unleashed is going to really scar healthy relationships in Manipur going forward. Not a word from these two leaders, because they're busy focusing on trying to win Karnataka, where they got a solid rebuff. So when you take this issue of national security. That is again, I've just given you two examples of mega failures, but similarly, there was one big announcement once, Naga Accord is going to be signed. It has been about 8 years since that announcement. Nothing has happened. We don't know any details. When is this man going to ensure peace and harmony in this country? That is not going to happen because the next mega failure is social disharmony. If you put a blood pressure machine to India, what are you going to see? From 2014, India's blood pressure has increased. Everywhere there is tension, violence, hatred. In Karnataka, what the BJP did, especially in the coast, where multiple religions were living together peacefully, they would create tension continuously. If two people of different religions talk to each other, they would go there and separate them. In our state, just to give you an example, if young women wanted to cover their heads and go to class, they found a way to ban the hijab. They found a way to make noise about how animals should be slaughtered by raising issues that halal meat should not be allowed. I mean, these are all not issues that matter. Different communities have their own practices. Leave them alone and treat everyone as Indian. But the Prime Minister's aim has been to lead from the front when lynching increases, when his own ministers are out there giving provocative speeches full of hate. There is not a word of remorse from the Prime Minister. In fact, people make these speeches in the hope of promotion because that's what happens under Modi Sarkar. Under Modi Sarkar, India's largest minority, the Muslims, do not have a single representative in the ministry at the center, do not have a single MP in the BJP. Now, earlier, they had a pretense of one or two token people. Now even that has been pushed aside. Basically, the agenda is to go out there and bring in the RSS's vision of India, which is totally opposed to the constitutional vision of Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, whose death anniversary we celebrate today, we honor today, of Ambedkar, of Mahatma Gandhi, who gave his life for communal harmony. All of these, Maulana Azad, Subhash Bose, every one of them fought to make India come together, and instead we are seeing the opposite under Prime Minister Modi. Even worse, we are in Tamil Nadu, one of the states that has been at the forefront of social justice. And under Modi Sarkar, we are seeing a reversal of social justice. Let me give you, this is another mega failure. What is it? You remember, they've brought in something called an economically weaker section 10% reservation. They were not allowing increase beyond 50% like you have in Tamil Nadu, but for economically weaker sections amongst the upper castes, they have now given 10%. If you look in Karnataka, economically weaker sections of upper castes themselves are about 2% of the population. Now they get 10% for their economically weaker sections. What happens? What happens to the rest? What happens to other kinds of backward classes, of Dalits, of Adivasis? What happens to their reservations? It is now being redirected towards the old upper caste. And when you see attacks on Dalits, attacks on Adivasis, all of these have increased under Modi Sarkar. And even worse, if you take a look at women and what has been happening, you are seeing in photos and videos of the wrestlers' protest. Our champion women wrestlers have complained multiple times. They are sitting on dharna in Jantar Mantar saying that a BJP MP, Brijbhushan Saran Singh, who is the president of the Wrestling Federation, that he sexually harassed multiple women wrestlers and requested the government and the Prime Minister to take action. Very little action has been taken. They constituted some probe. The results have not been shown. And now these people are going to stand out there and protest when Parliament, the new building, is inaugurated tomorrow. Think about it. If our gold medal winning champion women wrestlers cannot get the protection of the government against sexual harassment, then what can women expect under this government? Instead, you've seen multiple times BJP leaders involved in rape and all kinds of other activities who have been promoted and supported. That young girl in Kathua in Jammu and Kashmir who was raped and murdered, that there were BJP ministers who stood in support of the murderers, and some of them were promoted. You saw similar incidents with that BJP MLA Sengar, who was not in Unnao, who went ahead and murdered even the parents of the girl who had been attacked, the lawyer of the girl who had been attacked. That is the kind of respect for women that you find under Modi Sarkar. Next, mega failure number 7. See, I actually head the research department. I can go on for hours and hours. I'm just giving you highlights of the main failures. Attack on democracy and institutions. Until recently, we had a BJP government in Karnataka. Did the BJP win in 2018? No. We had a coalition between the JDS and the Congress. And what did the BJP do? They came up with their Operation Kamala and they bought up MLAs, destabilized and brought down the government. They've done this in Goa, they've done this in Manipur, they've done this in Arunachal Pradesh, they did this in Madhya Pradesh. Wherever democratic outcomes are against them, they will destabilize the governments and they will change the outcome. How do they destabilize governments also? By misusing institutions, investigative agencies. The Enforcement Directorate, the CBI, instead of being neutral organizations that probe corruption and criminality, are literally taking instructions from the Modi Sarkar. And if there are cases being probed against people before they join BJP, the moment they join the BJP, they undergo a Ganga Snan. All their sins get washed away. I'll give you the example of Himanta Biswa Sarma, the Chief Minister of Assam. When he was in the Congress, there was something called the Louis Berger case against him. There were multiple allegations. And suddenly, when he joined the BJP, that case and its files have all disappeared. In the election campaign recently in Meghalaya, the Amit Shah, Home Minister, called it a very corrupt government. Immediately after the election, they've joined hands. And what happened to those allegations? But in other institutions, Dr. Jaikumar is in the current Lok Sabha, and he can tell you that in the last session, who disrupted Parliament and why? We raised the issue of Prime Minister Modi's nexus with Gautam Adani, this crony capitalism, and in order to avoid discussion and debate on that subject, the ruling party itself disrupted Parliament continuously on all sorts of excuses. And this Parliament, under this Prime Minister, has had very little constructive activity, and it is basically, when they want to pass legislation, they just bulldoze it through various, we saw that with the farm laws, and we see that with even the budget this year. Everything was just bulldozed without any discussion. That is not the function of Parliament, and that's unfortunately what's going on. Further, Election Commission, the RBI, every one of these independent institutions is under pressure from the government, and it's giving rulings in favor. Even the Supreme Court doesn't seem to be kept away from all this. You know that Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi, the minute he retired, he was made a member of the Rajya Sabha. For what? You need to ask. Then other issues relate to welfare schemes. Manrega was one of the most important programs that saved the lives of millions of our people during COVID. But what had the Prime Minister said in Parliament in front of me? He had said that it is a monument to the failures of Congress regimes that we still had to provide support of this sort to the people. Building an economy, making India a multi-trillion-dollar economy is the work of decades. This Prime Minister keeps saying nothing happened in 60 years. In 60 years of Congress rule, we built the foundations of modern India. We took a poor, backward, divided country and united it and made it a flourishing democracy, a flourishing economy. And since Manmohan Singh's time and Narasimha Rao's time in 1991, we have unleashed even the private sector to grow tremendously. But that same private sector does not invest under Modi Sarkar's regime. They've given them huge tax cuts, but no investments have come in return. So when that happens, people need a social safety net. And that's why you have something like Manrega. But Manrega funds have been cut. Manrega now, in the implementation, they insist on digital verification, and people are, where they are unable to do that, you end up losing wages. Funds have been cut for education as a percentage of GDP, as a percentage for health as a percentage of GDP. Food Security Act that we brought in, the funding for that has decreased. As a result, India's nutrition levels are falling, and children are getting more wasted and stunted, which is the worst thing you can do to our next generation. And this, other welfare schemes, scholarships for minorities, scholarships for Dalits and Adivasis, all of these are being slashed. So this is no way to treat people who need help to move ahead. And finally, number 9, the government keeps boasting about how it managed COVID. But let me remind you that that lockdown was announced in 4 hours without giving people time to prepare. At that time, COVID had not spread in India. It was restricted to a few people who were coming from abroad. And in front of our eyes, we saw lakhs and lakhs of migrant workers being forced to walk thousands of kilometers back home, many of whom died along the way. Why? Because this government did not pay attention to poor migrant workers. Similarly, they did not make the preparation for the second wave of COVID. They instead announced that COVID has been conquered, that we have defeated COVID, but instead we had a second wave, we had shortage of oxygen, we had shortage of crematoria, and you saw bodies floating down the Ganga, and basically this government essentially ignoring the people. But what did the government do? It did its usual nonsense of fudging data. Prime Minister announced 10% of GDP worth of welfare programs to revive as COVID aid. But what did it turn out to be? Just 1%. Where is 10% of GDP? Where is 1%? And they also fudged the data on the number of deaths from COVID. They have suppressed evidence and they want to look good. But COVID's mismanagement is another one of the mega failures. So let's just go over these failures again. One mega failure, the economy. Another mega failure is farmers and agriculture. Third is corruption and cronyism. Fourth is China and national security. Five is social harmony, which has gone to the dogs under Modi Sarkar. Sixth is social justice and its failures. Seventh is the attacks on democracy and federalism. One last thing I want to mention on that. In Karnataka and now in Tamil Nadu, we are seeing that Amul is trying to come in and intervene here in Avin and in Karnataka in Nandini's territories. Okay. My late uncle, who was mentioned earlier, Shri M.V. Krishnappa, is the founder of the dairy movement in Karnataka. And you will see a statue of his before Bangalore Dairy. These are people who built up cooperative institutions, and Amul has no business coming into successful cooperative territories and trying to enter the milk market. But in order to control cooperatives everywhere, the Home Minister creates a new portfolio, Minister for Cooperation. It's a state subject, but the center creates that, and then Amit Shah ji goes systematically trying to take over and create one mega cooperative whose profits will go to the farmers of Gujarat. Then the next mega failure is welfare schemes, and they're hollowing out. And the ninth is mismanagement of COVID. So, when you have these kinds of mega failures, what else can the government do but try to distract us with some drama or the other every day? But I can tell you that the people of Karnataka saw through these dramas. There, the Prime Minister tried to bring up issues of religion. People rejected it because bread and butter matters. If your food supplies are coming down because of inflation, if your ability to earn has come down because you don't have jobs, then you're going to pay attention to these failures. But think about it. Two massive mandates from the people, a majority in the Lok Sabha compared to coalition governments earlier, and this mandate has been wasted by Prime Minister Modi. And worst of all, when you lose 9 years and you're going to lose a 10th before the next election, what has that done to the youth of India and their future? We keep talking that the youth of India could be our demographic dividend. They could be the workforce of the world. No, unfortunately under Modi Sarkar, this is not happening. Youth are instead being misled into getting involved in communal tension because there are no jobs for them, education opportunities have not been delivered, and all round we have a mega failure. And building up from now on, we will be communicating to the people that the hollowness of Modi Sarkar, the failures of Modi Sarkar, and in the next 10 months, when the campaigns for the Lok Sabha begins, we will see that what has started in Karnataka will be a wave across the country. Telangana, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Mizoram, you will see these elections electing non-BJP governments, Congress governments, and 2024, together we will bring back India's glory, we will restore democracy. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Sir,
Yes.
Sir, you have pointed out the failures of the BJP government in the last 9 years. First, let me come on the economic front. You said like the crude oil price, despite its decrease, the BJP government has not passed on the benefits. Like, can you promise anything that after you are coming to government, what will be the price? Like, will Congress government come forward to reduce the price?
So, during the Congress government, we used to provide, UPA government, we used to provide massive subsidies, right? And then over time, we decreased them and we made prices linked to market prices. So if global crude oil prices fall, then that would be passed on to the people. If they rise, then the prices will go up. So that's what we did. And that's what we will continue to do. So if we benefit from low crude oil prices, fantastic. It will be passed on. Okay, absolutely. You can count on that. And we will also reduce our dependence on fossil fuel, so that will also be beneficial. But we will certainly not use the excuse and pocket those resources. Why have they done that? Because they're not able to manage the finances. And that's why they've been, stealing our money, you could say. Yes. Okay. So, I did not say economic failures due to COVID. Even before COVID, if you pay attention to economic growth, it had been falling every quarter after demonetization, right? I didn't mention that word, but that is one of the biggest failures, right, of this government. They brought in demonetization, hundreds of people died standing in queues, and essentially large numbers of people lost their jobs. Those in the informal sector lost their jobs, have not recovered, right? What is the Congress's tradition? The 5-year plans, and we built the basis, the foundation for the public sector in modern India. 91, we brought in liberalization and brought in tremendous growth. You look, at the 10 years of UPA and the average growth rate, it was, some years we crossed double digits, right? And what does growth do? It creates more wealth that can be shared with more people, and that will help create opportunities, all right? UPA, the NDA government, BJP, when they came in, they revised those numbers. They wanted to make us look bad. Even with the revised numbers, their growth rate, average of 9 years, is worse than the UPA 10 years, okay? So we are very good at managing the economy. We had, what was the share of manufacturing and private investment under UPA? Why has it fallen under the BJP? That means the private sector, for all that 1,45,000 crore tax cut, still does not want to invest because they don't trust this government and its agendas. All right? So we will elicit trust, we will spur entrepreneurship, and we will pay attention to those who are falling behind by putting a social safety net like Manrega, whatever else that needs to be given to youngsters to help them grow.
Speaking on the corruption issue.
Yeah.
Speaking on the corruption issue, you said cronyism. Even during the UPA regime, even Tata complained that when he tried to enter aviation, the minister sought bribe from him. So there are also complaints against the UPA. That is general complaints like on the corruption. It's there in almost all the governments.
Let me tell you that many of the allegations that were levied against us, whether it was 2G, whether it was coal, all of these have been proven to be false allegations. Simply they created one, one big movement, but they are all hollow. And as a result, you gave an opportunity to this government to come in, which has proved to be a massive failure. Any other questions? Thank you very much.